and just focus on having an amazing conversation.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, for context, this will be part of our series where we explore cybersecurity agencies that are navigating the challenges with AI and automation. We want to specialize in helping them scale their revenue. So I'm always learning from industry leaders like yourself.
Sure. All right. So you want me to tell you a little bit about my journey into cybersecurity?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. As I mentioned, I'm originally from Miami, but I actually grew up in El Paso, Texas. So we moved to West Texas when I was like 8 years old. And I graduated from the University of Texas, El Paso from UTEP in, I don't think the year matters, but I studied
Sure.
accounting. And so I always had a head for numbers and logic. I had that engineering mindset, and I didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up. So I asked professors, what do I need to do to wear a suit and carry a briefcase? And found myself in the accounting space. So I got my bachelor's in accounting, and then it was time to sit for the CPA.
Okay.
And I just didn't feel ready to move into a cubicle and do audit and taxes for the rest of my life. So
Yeah.
I joined the Army, and the Army made me a signal officer. So that was actually my first exposure into the world of information technology and communications.
Wow.
Now, I commissioned in the Army in 2005, and so we were just integrating into satellite communications. A lot of the units were still very traditional on like line of sight, antennas, radios, single radios. That was really like the focus of our schoolhouse training. And I know that didn't like really excite me either. So I had a lot of fun in the Army, and I loved my soldiers, but I ended up going back to school to get my MBA. And then I moved into the world of manufacturing and building medical devices. So it was like what they call good manufacturing principles, very highly regulated industry.
Yeah.
And I was immersed very much into the world of engineering, which I did really enjoy. Actually, I found manufacturing to be fascinating. And I think it's just the mathematical applications combined with the people element and being able to build something. So I met my husband in the Army. He was fascinated by information technology. He lived and breathed IT and every element of
Wow.
IT. And he ended up serving for 20 years. He was also eventually a signal officer. So he moved from engineering into signal. And then he got his master's degree in IT management. And so when he retired in 2017,
Okay.
after 20 years of service, he decided he was going to pursue information assurance, cybersecurity, and the administrative compliance aspects of federal information systems. So he worked for various companies for about 2 years and became a subject matter expert, built a very strong reputation for performance, for knowledge, for creating efficiencies and identifying opportunities. And then in 2019, he decided it was time to branch out and go out on our own. Now,
Wow.
I had been running businesses for about 15 years at that point in the manufacturing and supply chain space. And I had led large multi-scale businesses. I had 600 employees, a $50 million P&L. So we really just merged our individual capabilities to formulate our technologies. So we launched with our first contract in 2020. Which went very well, and it was a 1-year contract. And then when it came to a close, we decided to move from Ohio. We closed down the company in Ohio and relocated here to Florida. And then in January of 2022, we reestablished the S Corps and created Ashire Technologies here in Florida.
I saw on your LinkedIn your recent post about being Telemundo's like unstoppable woman. As a Latina author and former military member, like how does it feel to receive such high recognition?
Oh my God, like a dream. Something that I have discovered in my journey that I really wasn't aware of is how small the representation is of Latinas in major industries or in major areas of
Defense.
driving change. So whether it's as a military officer or whether it was as an executive level leader as an author, traditionally published author coming out of the large publishing houses like Latinas, so particularly, and I say Latinas because it's the women that are almost always consistently the lowest represented minority group across the board. Women as a whole are usually represented less, but Latinas are the smallest population across all of the different races and backgrounds. I didn't know this. So it's funny because I have always just followed my heart, my passions, and the talents that I believe God gave me. Listen to the calling that I have in my life. I've had a lot of support from my family to go for it if I feel this is something that I want to pursue. And through the journey, I discovered that I was building bridges and representing in an area where there were very few people who looked like me. So it has been an incredible honor, and I'm just so thankful. Obviously, there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that. And so for me, it's just trying to always do a good job and represent us well.
I think you're doing stellar. Like, it's super impressive. And now that I'm reading At Island's Edge, it's also very eye-opening, like how much the main character had to go through. I know it's a novel, but what percentage would you say is actually based on your experience while serving?
Yeah, I would say all of Lena's military details are loosely based on either experiences of people that I know who have served in the military or my own. So it's kind of a combination thereof when it comes to the accuracy of the details. So I thought that was something that I could bring to the story that would help elevate it. The banter between service members is very accurate. I was on active duty for 3 years. I know how soldiers talk to each other. And then I served with so many amazing men and women during that time, during constant deployments. And so I think almost all of the military elements of the story have a strong foundation in truth.
Yeah, I'm like on page 47, I think, and I'm like completely immersed because even like the breath, like facial expressions, I feel like right now it's like from being a military now to being a mom, and then like eventually find your way out into the world.
Yeah.
Um,
Going home is tough. I can't remember if page 47 already has you in Puerto Rico or not
yes,
yet.
would be
Okay.
yeah.
Well, yes. So the dynamics of going home, I think, are cross-cultural. I wanted to give it a very intimate feeling of my culture because my father's Cuban, so it's a little bit different, right? Again, this is fiction. But I think for anyone who has been away and wanting to show their family what they can accomplish and who they can be, and then they feel like they're going home a failure and they've let everybody down. I think that resonates across culture. And I think Lena's experience can be very universal
Yeah.
for people that have gone through something that leaves them where she's at in that moment. And I'm really honored to hear that you're enjoying the story. I have actually been very pleasantly surprised at how many male readers I've had and how closely they are connecting with her story, both as a parent, as a soldier, as a Latino. I think it's universal.
Yeah, and I think it's really incredible how like, you're representing once again like not just women but a Latina in the military and a mom, and it's incredible like how well written it is and how deeply I can connect to Lena, the main character.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That means the world to me. I remember when I had this idea to write the story, and it was just a very simple idea. I literally woke up in the morning. I had been thinking about her son Teo for a few weeks. Teo was coming to life in my mind, but I wasn't sure what the story was going to be. And one day I woke up and he's like in my head saying, I want you to know about my mom. And I was like, what about your mom? And then it was like, what would it be like if a young woman and a single mother was on the battlefield and had to take a life of someone that reminded her so much of her young son? And as a Latina and as a mother, what would that be like? And then I was like, thank you, Teo. That's an amazing idea.
Yeah, he
But
fit
there was
well
like
right there.
nothing like it. I mean, there are so many beautiful stories of fathers and sons and young men coming back from the traumas of war
Mm.
that I hadn't read or found anything that would describe a mother's experience. And yet there were so many of them that did serve on the battlefields. So, yeah, I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to share that story, even though right now it's a tough time for that book to be out. And a lot of people are saying, oh, I don't want to know anything about war. I don't want anything, government.
Ignorance is worse, in my humble opinion.
I agree. I agree.
And thank you for sharing. And now that we've talked a little bit about your story and the book, I would like to really hear the insights about the industry that you're currently seeing in cybersecurity and why you feel like cybersecurity is a need to have versus just a nice to have.
Wow. So on the pace of the advancements in technology today are far faster. We're moving at a much faster pace than ever before, which means that on a global scale, there are exposures and vulnerabilities with threat actors that we haven't even begun to uncover or
Yeah.
discover. And so I think economically and in terms of overall safety, the world is volatile right now. We know that. We're seeing it unfold on our computer monitors and our television screens every day. Traditional attacks, which have always been weapons and warfare, are now shifting and evolving into technological approaches, right? So for us to be prepared and have an implementing best practice from a cybersecurity standpoint is the equivalent of our country and our nation fortifying our defense forces, our men and our women, weapons and our planes and our ships, right? The same way that we would invest and we would prepare for
That's
traditional
important.
warfare with those instruments is the way that we now need to prepare for technological warfare with cybersecurity instruments. So I think now environment in which countries are going to attack one another is highly evolving. We're seeing now lasers and attack mechanisms in space. I mean, the United States has developed a space force for a reason because we have to protect satellites that we have launched and abilities to communicate and manage our systems at rates that we've never seen before, just unprecedented.
I'm assuming you're having conversations to present your solution to, like very important people. Like, how do you convey that to the CEO or to the board?
I think when it comes to federal government, which has been our primary target, right? Federal information systems, they get it. They know.
Yeah.
Our job, they have the regulations are in place. We have the executive orders that are rolling out that are talking about ways to continue to advance cybersecurity. So I think on a large scale, the message is out there and it's being enforced and delivered. In fact, now we have the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, CMMC, which is mandating that all businesses that want to do business with the Department of Defense and soon enough with the entire federal government must have certain cybersecurity controls in place in order to be able to do business.
That makes
So
sense.
I think that message is there. However, where we find our greatest opportunity and our biggest challenge, like if I look at this from a SWOT standpoint,
That's
it's the
smart.
small businesses. It's the small businesses that say, I don't have capital to invest in some big fancy cybersecurity program. I'm just a small business. Nobody cares about me. We're not at risk. When the reality is small businesses are the largest target population of hackers.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They know that small businesses
They
are
don't
not
have the.
taking the steps to protect their data. So it's really trying to communicate cost-effective solutions and the power of training and managing human interactions because humans are the biggest vulnerability to cyber attacks. And
Little mistakes can
yes, and just lack of awareness or understanding. And so it's being able to convey that message and make sure that there is training and awareness that they are the biggest target for threat actors. And with just small investments and minor changes that can help protect, because one breach will put them out of business. Whereas a large business, they have insurance, they could bounce back.
And so as a founder, CEO, and BPO of Azure Technologies, I know you're really focusing on the federal government client, but you also mentioned something really important, like small businesses, right? And I feel like every business is actually a technology business, at least in the 21st century.
Of course.
How do you go about convincing these small businesses that this is a must versus like a nice to have? And how do you even find these people and have these conversations?
So I am very involved in like attending conferences. Conferences really are attended more by small and medium-sized businesses than anybody else, right? And
Yes.
so I participate in conferences with like-minded personnel. The way to convince them is usually one, starting with there are cost-effective solutions for cyber protections.
Okay.
We provide business cases that have shown that attorneys' offices, medical offices, dental offices, consulting companies with personally identifiable information can be obliterated if they're not protecting the information that is routing through their channels. In the 21st century, data has become the new currency, right? But the data that we have access to, the data that we manage, can be even more valuable than those blocks of gold.
Yeah,
And
it
we
is.
have to treat them as such. And so this is just one of those things. If you did have blocks of gold, you wouldn't keep them on the kitchen counter. You would have them locked in a safe somewhere where only certain people could access them and only certain people would. And so it's the exact same principle, is that in your computers and routing through your network is information that is of equivalent value, and you need to have those same protections in place.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's very interesting that you mentioned like a broad spectrum of different industries, like law firms and dentists and pretty much confidential information firms that
Right.
that data. You and your business partner slash husband, do you guys primarily focusing on reaching to those people like personally, or do you feel like those people will attending a cybersecurity conference?
So our business is comprised of three critical pillars. One pillar is our federal government space. And so the way that we grow within the federal government space is through existing partnerships. We bid on contracts as they become available and they're released. So anybody who's a government contractor has access to them in the portals. And then through the growth of our existing contracts. So you do a good job on where you are working and they tend to give you more work. And then, so that's
Yeah.
really the way that we grow in federal government is very straightforward. Then we have this pillar of business that is preparing all companies for the cybersecurity maturity model certification. So this is where we can either consult and ensure that once you are audited, you will be positioned to pass the audit because we have helped prepare to make sure all your controls are in place, or we could be hired to actually conduct the assessment. They are now getting certified to be able to do either of those two, all the way up to the level 2 level, which is 110 individual cybersecurity controls. And then the third pillar of business is what you're asking about. So it's helping to support commercial companies, maybe that don't do work in the federal government space, but that have important data flowing through and how to protect those. And so we offer a white label system at a very affordable monthly rate that will allow us to scan and monitor the usage from any type of Microsoft or Google suite. Using their email address, we can search the dark web for any suspicious activity. We can protect their devices from any types of attack. We do conducted simulated phishing so that we're training your employees to how to react if they are being phished, and we identify what vulnerabilities you have, what employees are clicking the link, what employees, and to help provide training, and we do provide that. Targeting those companies, we have our website. We have a very robust website that really highlights all of these services. It tends to be a strong word of mouth. So when you provide a good service similar to the government, one company will tell their partners, are members of all of the different like small business specialized categories within the state of Florida and the country on the commercial side. So we have a NAVOBA certification as a service disabled veteran owned. And being part of those certifications gives you access to those networks and all of the companies that participate in those networks as well.
Yeah, it gives you that visibility.
And so the conference is one part of it, but there's also a lot of like monthly training meetings where you all get together. I'm constantly doing panels and webinars to help not only say, hey, we're here and we do good work, but to show, the knowledge is there and that we are implementing best practice and the most modern technologies to protect the company and their information.
That makes a lot of sense. Having these conversations, most of the clients for cybersecurity agencies and firms actually come through referrals. The only problem that I've been hearing is like some of those referrals are not really qualified, and then also revenue tends to be a little bit like unpredictable. Sometimes you have a really good pipeline and sometimes it's a little bit dry. So then you have to spend tens of hours attending conferences and posting and doing all of these other things. Where do you see your company in the next like 6 to 12 months?
We are getting positioned for a certification called the C3PAO, which it almost provides like a company level certification to be able to support companies through the CMMC process. Right now, my husband is the certified professional for the company, but we want to make it company organization wide. That is a certification that we are prepping for in the next 6 to 12 months. We also purchased our headquarter facility in Central Florida about a year and a half ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a beautiful brand new building. We got an amazing opportunity to do that. And our goal is to fill it. So, we've got all this available brand new space, 30 some miles from the Space Coast, 30 some miles from Orlando's defense industry. And there's nothing but opportunity there. So whether we do what they call a SOC, a Security Operations Center, or a NOSC, like a Network Operations Security Center, if we do a software development lab, we've talked about some different funding and opportunity for AI integration and having that kind of development work at our facility. But I definitely see us growing in heads and utilizing the space that we have available.
That's incredible. I'm super proud of you and your husband. That's such a big accomplishment. And so what would you say is working the best for your business right now, and what has been a little bit frustrating?
Yeah, so I'll start with what's frustrating. So what's frustrating is obviously with the changes in administration in the government business, that's going to have an impact, right? And all politics aside, it happens every 4 years with every change in administration. There are new budgets that have to be reviewed, and so it's going to have an impact in every element of federal government contracting. So that has been really tough in 2025. We've had very unique hurdles this year, and so it's just being patient. We're very fortunate that our existing contracts have kept us moving along strong through these challenges, but we're looking forward to getting back into a traditional groove as we navigate these next 4 years under this new administration. In terms of what is going very well, so both my husband, my business partner, and I really pride ourselves on excellence. We don't jump into industries with a high level understanding. We get really granular and really deep into the weeds of why we make the decisions that we make, or why we want to pursue, or why our strategy is this. So we learn the specifics that are outlined in NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology's special publications. We have a very strong understanding of how to take those controls and those guidelines and implement them efficiently. It's one thing, and think about your accountant, right? They need to understand the IRS tax codes, but they also need to know how to apply those codes and those guidelines smartly and in a way that's going to be compliant, but also to your benefit. And I think that's a strategy that we have fine-tuned over 7 years that we've been doing this, and it helps differentiate us amongst the others. So the deep knowledge of these compliance guidelines is there, but then how to take that and apply it in a way that makes sense for the company or the government system without bogging it down with administrative burden right?
Make
Is
it
very
effortless for them. Maybe have an interview to get a deeper understanding
Yeah,
into
identify
what's
where
the
can you
control.
inherit controls from parent systems, right? You don't have to
Right.
continue to reinvent the wheel for every layer. There might be a
Exactly.
parent system where you can just flow those controls down. And so we do that type of a deep dive to help ensure that we can incur efficiencies where they're available.
That's perfect. And administrations aside, like if you could solve one major challenge for your business, like what would that be?
For my business or for the industry?
For your business, it looks like you have a brand new office and you have a lot of room to growth.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that
good.
would definitely be the one I'd go after. I'd fill the office with work and with employees. One, it's good for the local economy here in Central Florida.
Mhm.
I would love to offer jobs here and be able to use that space and build things, like build strong products with a center of excellence mentality at our facility. So if that's something that I could solve, like that would definitely be one of the first things, is how can we take on a project and build and create things here with that, what they call DevSecOps, development security operations, making sure that we're integrating and plugging cybersecurity controls at the source in the development process, even with using agile framework. You can still have security baked in rather than waiting until downstream where you much costlier because you have to rewrite everything.
Oh, God.
We've got a lot of wonderful, I think, local talent, innovation, amazing weather. Is a very tax-friendly state. We've got all of the right
The great
ingredients.
benefits. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just finding the project.
So if we were to like reverse engineer, like how to get to that point in time, I guess what steps could you take, like in the next few months to actually be able to fill that office and take advantage of all
We need to be in the rooms with the creators, with the developers,
the
with
creation?
the think tank, right? I need to make sure that I am a voice in the room in different areas, whether it's through the universities that have different initiatives where they're piloting technologies and we can get involved with that, whether it's local government initiatives, and that's often, through the SBA, through the Department of Labor, through Florida specific initiatives where they're saying there's funding available or there's tax incentives available or there's scholarships, all types of things that are helping to promote entrepreneurship and economic activity, specializing in technology. And so it's just staying very plugged in. We have the Apex accelerators, which those are groups that are across the country. It's free. It's funded by the Department of Defense. But that's exactly what they're there for, is to be that bridge between what are all the programs that are available and how do we connect them with the people and the companies that are ready to receive them.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. It's just super interesting because you have 15 years plus of experience, and now that you're growing your own business, it's just like super insightful being able to understand what the next steps are to get to that level.
Yeah, and it's funny, I was in manufacturing and warehousing distribution, moving things from one place to another, for either from the manufacturer to the consumer or from one business to the next as it moves downstream. Cybersecurity and this whole industry is a totally different animal. Core business practices succeed. They can be applied in any industry. It's being able to build a business case, right? What's the value for you, the end customer, and how can we provide you that value in a way that makes sense? It's about making sure that you've got a readiness and you're available and you're at the right place at the right time, ready to tackle the problem. Good, strong leadership that attracts top talent. You want to be a differentiator. That almost always comes down to the people that you have at the table. And so being able to attract the best of those people means that you need to be someone they want to come and work for.
Yeah,
And,
you need to
that
become
means
that
being a
leader.
good employer. So those are things that really you can implement across any industry. But in cybersecurity, it's widespread. It's needed by every type of industry and organization, but it simmers underneath the infrastructure. So it's being able to get insights into that second layer and then have a voice inside that second layer as well.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And that's something that I like see you doing really well, like branding yourself and positioning yourself in different groups. Like I think you're in women in defense and Latinos in defense and different things that are gonna open the door for future opportunities as well.
Yeah. Thank you. And I've met some really amazing people too. As a writer, it's funny, I'm very introverted. Like my nature is to be in my office with the doors closed and a candle burning and I'm writing
Ooh,
books. That's like my
yeah.
natural. But as a business professional and something that I also feel very passionate and equally called to do, I'm in a very different role. I'm in a very forward facing and customer facing role. So they're a totally different strategy that you need to be able to prove your understanding of things, build trust within the community, and engage people that you're the kind of person that they want to come and partner with and work with, because sometimes these business relationships can be like marriages.
They are almost right. And it's funny, speaking about marriages, are you more at the front-facing side of the business that is building the relationships and going out there to secure more contracts, or is it your husband that is in charge of that?
No, if he can stay away from any cameras or any type of marketing, he is more than happy to do that. So he is a tried and true technical expert, and the core of our success has been in his knowledge, understanding, and passion for this industry. But he is very much working with the teams on a day-to-day basis in the
Mhm.
weeds,
Yeah.
teaching and guiding all of the government teams. He wants absolutely nothing to do with this development.
Yeah, that's also on you. That was
That
great.
falls on me, yes.
Thank you for sharing this insight. Once we have compiled our podcast conversations, I'll send over like short-form content for you to maybe repost if you like, and maybe
That's
promote
actually the
you.
question I have is how do I help you? What are some things that I can do to help drive exposure? How do I help?
That is so kind of you. We're actually partnering with cybersecurity agencies that are going from relying on referrals and countless hours of branding and networking to delivering pre-qualified booked appointments in their calendar. And it could be from a range of different industries. For example, you mentioned law firms, accountants, dental offices. And I'd be happy to share more information, perhaps in a follow-up call, if that's something you'd be open to and find valuable. Does that sound
Absolutely.
good?
That sounds great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the whole system is pretty simple. We will use AI technologies to find specific decision makers in the industries that you choose, and then reach out to those people and get them scheduled in your calendar so that you can just focus on what you do best, which is drive your business forward so that you don't have to spend countless hours like going to different seminars and conferences, and, which is
Weekend.
I really do admire that about you, but I just want to make it simple for
Sure.
cybersecurity agencies that are solely relying on referrals and doing
Yeah,
all.
sounds like a great opportunity and a very strong potential win for both of us. So I look forward to talking more about that.
Feelings are mutual.
Thank you. All right, Luis, and keep me posted. I will look forward to hearing back from you on the different steps. I will share them. I've got a pretty strong platform in LinkedIn, so I will make sure to leverage that. And you know where to
So
find
much.
me if you need anything else.
Absolutely, Cherisa. Thank you so much for your time and your insights today. I truly admire you.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure and happy reading.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying it.
All right, bye-bye.